Last night, we told you about a federal law designed to keep homeless students from getting behind by promising them access to appropriate education. And we shared the stories of some families experiencing homelessness in the valley. But 7 Investigates learned while the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act is well intended, it has shortfalls that lead to undercounting of unhoused students. Under the law, every school district in the entire country is required to identify and support homeless students. But not every district applies or receives the extra federal money set aside to do that.
You guys remember when we did the express powers? What did you have?
Making the invisible
So they wanted the state to hold all the power.
visible in rural Idaho.
Oh, so it's just like opposite?
I'm Jen Wright. I'm the high school principal over at Notice High School. But I'm also federal programs director, the grant coordinator, and McKinney-Vento liaison. In small districts, you do it all.
As the district's McKinney-Vento liaison, Wright keeps unhoused kids in school.
Benefit is we know our families here, so we make sure we graduate or we figure out a plan.
Just summarizing each section.
She makes sure they enroll no matter what, educates families about opportunities for their children, refers them to healthcare and housing services, and so much more.
We're their safe space. We're their home away from home. Sometimes we're their only home.
What does legislate mean?
Last year in Notice,
Make law.
12% of students were identified as homeless.
So they're behind in rent, so then they find themselves without a place to live.
The number of identified homeless students in Notice is much higher than the statewide average of around 3%.
Thank you, Corbin.
But experts believe that statewide number is likely an undercount.
It is a problem, and we're doing what we can to mitigate that with our annual trainings, with creating those community partnerships of cross-referral and cross-training as well, public outreach.
Part of the advantage of being in a smaller district is we can greet them at the door. We can ask those questions, and then we can follow up.
Nationally, it's estimated at least 5 to 10% of students in poverty eligible for free or reduced lunch experience homelessness under the McKinney-Vento definition.
Do you think that this broad definition may lead to undercounting? People may not identify themselves as homeless?
Definitely.
7 Investigates analyzed Idaho Department of Education data and found it's possible at least 750 kids in Idaho who aren't stably housed are going unidentified by the school districts mandated to serve them. And 37 public school districts, not including charters, are likely undercounting.
I think the traditional idea of homelessness is, parking your car at a park somewhere and having to sleep in it.
Students most likely to go uncounted are those whose families don't realize they qualify for McKinney-Vento.
Because if you're staying with family, you have a home. You're not living out of your car.
And their schools fail to follow the rules and educate them.
I didn't know things like that even were available. If the social worker has no idea and the parents have no idea, how do they even know to ask the right questions? I think that's where you lose people.
Students can also fall through the cracks.
Probably because of the shame.
Due to the stigma.
It's kind of embarrassing to be in a situation like that to begin with, and so I can see a lot of people going unnoticed.
Everyone has their definition of what homelessness is.
Idaho's Title IXA coordinator, Emily Summer, says some families are afraid to admit they're struggling because they don't trust the government.
They're afraid that their kids are going to be taken away. They could have negative experiences with state agencies in the past as well. We are reporting, and our data reflects that there's only X amount, but in reality it's such a larger problem. It's really hard to address that and find a solution that's appropriate for that size of an issue.
Not only are students falling through the cracks, 7 Investigates also discovered most Idaho school districts are missing out on federal funds set aside for homeless students. Summer says only 29 out of the 180 public and charter school districts in the state applied for the competitive McKinney-Vento subgrants this cycle through the State Department of Ed, in part because it's not a whole lot of money.
It's a fixed amount, and it's dependent on how many schools apply.
Districts may not apply because it may not be worth it.
So if it's non-legislative, that would mean
Non-making laws.
The American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 included an historic $800 million for all districts to identify and support the needs of homeless children.
stuff other than making laws that Congress is in charge of.
But the school year before the pandemic, Idaho's McKinney-Vento funding was 8th lowest in the nation, totaling about $40 per identified homeless student.
It's not feasible.
A fraction of what schools actually spend to support them.
Well, that's not even a tank of gas.
When districts make a decision to accept federal funding, they have to take into consideration what their staffing is, their timing, and their resources, because some of the requirements that we have with federal funding requires data collection. They're subject to auditing.
Wright has to lean on other grants as well to help her students.
Not only like the food pantry or school supplies or help with first month's rent or gas vouchers or, understanding like, oh, they need glasses.
But at the end of the day,
Ms. Miller,
she says every little bit helps.
So I think without the sub-grants, we wouldn't be able to do what we do, which is provide the basic needs for these kids.
Do you wish the federal government would allot more money to this?
They need to, absolutely. Because, as you know, if basic needs aren't being met or if there's that barrier to learning, then they're not going to show up. Or then their attendance is terrible. Or then they eventually, as you know, the numbers, they drop out because they feel defeated.
Districts like Notice, together with the State Department of Education, are trying to prevent kids from feeling defeated. They're working to better identify and help unhoused students. Tomorrow night on the news at 10, you're going to hear about how they're doing that under McKinney-Vento.
No matter what's happening at home or with your family situation, you've got this, and we can help you figure out what next steps are.
It would be a shame not to have that program, because then you wouldn't have kids that are growing up to be amazing individuals had they not had that help.
You can watch the final part of our 3-part series, Idaho's Uncounted Kids, tomorrow night right here on KTVB.